North Star at Inflection is very simple. Building technology to double conversion rates and eliminate 90% of the workload. One of the key tactics we stumbled upon and started using very extensively was making personalized pages for different partners.
What's one emerging trend you believe will redefine partnerships marketing?
I think the real growth is going to come from going back to offline. The partners that put on events in person are going to be the ones that keep deepening their relationship with their audience.
You mentioned this word partnership many times, and I'm really liking this.
When you go to the landing page, it's often generic. That's where the big opportunity is to personalize. So we did actually a split test where we personalized it based on the type of partner sending the traffic, and we saw a 94% increase in conversion rate just from subline and headline, not even the rest of the copy.
Do you see AI as threat or augmentation is the new reality or replacement? What are your views?
I mean, honestly, like in every time in human history, it hasn't happened. Humans have always adapted 100% of the time.
Hello, everyone. This is Shubham Tiwari. I'm the Associate Director of Content Marketing and Socials at Phyllo, the universal solution for social media background checks and influencer vetting. I welcome you all to season 3. And by the way, we rank number 1 on Google when you look for influencer marketing podcasts. My guest today is Haafiz Dossa, CEO of Inflection, a company revolutionizing partnership and affiliate automation with AI-driven personalization. Haafiz has built Inflection into a game changer in influencer and affiliate marketing, as I just said, helping brands scale partnerships efficiently while maximizing ROI. With a background in founding and scaling multiple companies, Haafiz brings deep expertise in automation, AI, and the future of partnerships in the creator economy. Haafiz, welcome to Impulse.
I'm excited to be here. Thank you.
So the last time we spoke, we were discussing personalization at scale.
Yeah.
And I think that's what Inflection is doing right now. Can you tell us more details about it?
Yeah. So, I mean, Inflection was actually created out of an agency that I had previously founded before this business. And, what we did is we focused on delivering growth for health and wellness brands. And one of the channels we, of course, worked with was with influencers, with affiliates, things like that. And I was actually really proud of our team. What we did there is because we did everything we could to eke out every 0.1% in conversion rate increase that we possibly could. And one of the key tactics we stumbled upon and started using very extensively was making personalized pages for different partners, one by one. And, we quickly learned that, it's a lot of effort to go make that and build those pages. But what actually turned out to be even more of a lift was actually maintaining that many pages. When you roll out a sale, you got to update all these pages and then roll it back. It was just a lot of work. And I have a tech background. And so I started working on ways with our team to make more and more automation around that instead of doing that work manually. And we realized there was something there, and we actually spun it out and made its own business so that others could use the technology we made. And, essentially because of those challenges that we became intimately aware of in our agency life and how brands have challenges trying to scale up their partnership programs, we found that they're spending a lot of time doing things manually. And they don't have the capacity to work on like the big needle movers because they get bogged down in all the mundane things of partnerships. And that's where I believe like platforms like what you guys have built are really important for that. And so for that reason, our North Star at Inflection is very simple. It's building technology to double conversion rates and eliminate 90% of the workload. So we invented some technology to go do that. We've got this patent pending technology that allows the platform to be able to personalize any page on your site in real time to make sure that the content of that page lines up with what that influencer or partner's audience is interested in. And doing that without any extra development work and doing that all automatically. And, people often confuse like co-branding and making these clones of pages and all that. But what we do is a little bit different. We focus on allowing the brand to be able to create the content and having the funnels and having the hooks, the angles, all that fully personalized. So it's not just co-branding the page, but also making sure that the content aligns. And that's where we've done a lot of testing to see like that's where the real difference happens.
Can you give, an example to our audience of a brand, particularly, doing this kind of personalization at scale?
Yeah, I'll use like a large sleep tech brand that we work with. And I think this will help make the distinction between like that co-branding element and the personalization. So, the thing with sleep is that there's a ton of reasons to do it, but nobody sleeps just to sleep. There's other reasons why you want to sleep. Like you may be an athlete and you may have a big game tomorrow. You may be a professional poker player and you want like your mind to be sharp and focused. And so when you think through that lens for whatever your product is, in their case, it was sleep, helping improve sleep with technology, that's where you can see the wide variety of opportunities to work with different kinds of partners. And in the marketing speak, that would be called jobs to be done, and using a framework like jobs to be done. So, quick science corner here. Did you know that when you sleep is when you produce the primary time that your body produces testosterone and collagen? And so for that sleep tech company, they could work with a variety of partners like a workout YouTuber that, talks about getting gains at the gym and how important testosterone is for that, and therefore how important sleep is. Or a beauty blogger that could talk about how important it is to get your glowing skin. You need to sleep well so you can make collagen, and that's obviously a key ingredient in healthy skin. And so, often the creator would make that kind of content on their channels. But then when you go to the landing page, it's often generic. And so that's where the big opportunity is, to personalize the content on the page, and not just put their image there or a testimonial from what they put, but how the content on that page lines up with everything. And so we did actually a split test where we replaced the generic headline and subheadline of that page, and it was doing, and that content was doing millions of dollars in revenue. So it wasn't bad copy,
Right.
But we personalized it based on the type of partners sending the traffic, and we saw increases in conversion rates in the low end, somewhere in the 20%, up to, on the high end, I think it was like 94% increase in conversion rate, just from subheadline and headline, not even the rest of the copy. Like if you start doing, changing the reviews so that they cater to the audience, if you change like the rest of the content, the benefits, the features, what you put on there, what you actually don't put on there. And so like that kind of personalization and the customization of the marketing funnel is actually one of the 5 tenets of what we call our S.C.A.L.E formula. So the C in that, S.C.A.L.E, the C stands for customization of the marketing funnel.
Okay. Would you like to go through it entirely? S.C.A.L.E, the formula?
Yeah, sure. S.C.A.L.E. So S stands for solve for the gaps. C is customization of the marketing funnel. A is audience alignment and engagement. L is leveraging the partnership negotiations, and E is exclusivity. And so we covered C. The S, that stands for solving for the gaps. And so bringing in the right type of partners that plug the hole in your buyer's journey. And so, I think an example that everyone would know would be like back in the 80s, Nike. It wasn't a cool brand yet relative to the competitors, and they didn't need to explain the benefits and features of their running shoes. Like they could have done a campaign on like, our foam and our shoes have 20% more foam than Adidas, or whatever it would have been. But that's not why people were not buying their shoes in the mass market. Maybe the pro runners and stuff were, but not like generally. And so there was a desirability gap. And so they identified that gap. And that's why they brought in an aspirational figure like Michael Jordan and identified that. And then he was the one that helped plug that gap. And obviously that's one of the things that helped Nike take off. There's movies and books and all that stuff about it. So obviously now their gap isn't necessarily your gap. So it's not just only like, I'm not saying like go find someone that makes your brand desirable, but identify what the gap in your business is in your funnel, and then fill that gap with the right kind of partner that's tuned to filling that kind of gap. And things like post-purchase surveys are really good ways to identify that. Customer surveys, those are the kind of tools you need to and then take that data. You can use AI now to analyze it in mass and make it easy to analyze. It's actually much, much easier now to analyze that these days. And then feed that data into your recruitment efforts and find the right kind of partner. So that's the solving for the gaps. A is more basic, like that's table stakes, audience alignment and engagement. Everyone's doing that, making sure you're finding the right audiences, they've got good engagement, things like that. L is another interesting one, leverage in negotiation. So most people are looking at like the correlation, but not the causation of why sales are driven from partners. And so you got to know those causal metrics. So again, post-purchase surveys are really good for this, asking things like, how did you first hear about us? And then having like sub-questions that can identify which partners are the ones driving that kind of awareness and sales. What convinced you to buy? I can actually afterwards give your listeners the exact questions that we use to help determine that and the frameworks, and you can put it in the show notes or something like that. Yeah, and the other key tool that I'd recommend people use is like MTA platforms. So things like Northbeam, Triple Whale, Rockerbox also are really good to help figure that out, because you can also see in those tools what other channels outside the partnership role contribute to that growth. And so I distinctly remember this one brand, and there was like two partners. They did roughly the same amount of revenue in platform and were paid roughly the same amount. But one on average, the MTA platform showed one on average had about 2 touch points before someone bought, and about 60% had just the influencer as a touch point, and then the other 40% needed an assist from one or more other channels. And the other partner had on average 3 touch points, and only about 30% just had the influencer. So 70% required that assist. And if you look in both platforms, you'd show the same sales, but really that first partner is much more valuable to the brand because they did a lot more to help sell the product and create that lift without you having to do retargeting ads, other channels, email, whatever it was. And so that's why we actually really like using links instead of codes, because you can start seeing that clickstream data in the MTA platforms, and then use that to like factor into like having the data for the negotiations when you create those partnership deals. And then the last one is exclusivity, basically turning your offer into content. So by bringing something unique and interesting to the table, you can have something that's like, for example, an exclusive promo, or maybe you can negotiate for a period of time, having this be a really strong deal for that partner's audience, or framing the product in a way that you highlight the really cool, unique innovations that the product has had. And now all of a sudden that partner isn't putting out promotion, they're putting out content, and content is obviously still king.
Yeah, definitely. And to take it, like a bit more deeper, where do you see, to what extent personalization is going to go? Because we are talking about personalization of ad copy, personalization of experience. Because just the other day, me and a couple of other my colleagues, we decided to check out Maybelline's website.
Yeah.
And it appeared in different forms to all of us. So
very cool. Yeah.
Where is it going? I mean, the experience, where is going to go? Where's the next innovations coming from? And my question is, where is Inflection right now in terms of the journey of personalization?
Yeah. So I think we're ultimately, with the AI world we live in now, I think content is basically becoming quote unquote cheaper and cheaper. You can use tools like ChatGPT's deep research, or actually any of the platforms now have the deep research mode, and you can create like an almost like a Huberman Lab style podcast episode, or at least the data for it, right? With a few prompts and it thinks for 20 minutes and comes back with everything. So, I think content is becoming cheaper. And I think the thing in the influencer world is it's going to be about not the kind of content, but the affinity that partner has with their audience. And, it'd be great for tools like Phyllo to be able to surface that as like an affinity metric.
It's a cool
not
idea.
just like engagement metrics, but really that affinity, like how strong is that relationship that the influencer has with their audience? And if they say go jump, will their audience jump? And I think there's many ways to track that, but I think that's going to be the next big thing in the industry is like an affinity metric because of that. Because now there's just so much content, you can now follow the right people for the right content back on the personalization track and have all that level of content right at your fingertips. But really, it's that how does the affiliate or influencer build that relationship with their audience, and that's going to be key. And then even the stuff for like you talk about Maybelline. I mean, Meta's newest ad algorithms. It's all about like putting the right content in front of the right people at the right time. And where Inflection is going, we've got the personalization on the landing pages down. There's a number of things that are coming down the pipeline later this year that I'm not going to quite share just yet on that. So you'll have to follow us on LinkedIn to know more. But we were just voted as a finalist for the most innovative tech at the 2025 US Partnership Awards. We're quite proud of that. And that's just scratching the surface. We have a lot more cool stuff coming down the pipeline that I think people will be really excited about.
Wonderful. And speaking of affinity, I think we do have something related to audience affinity. Also, creators affinity, what kind of brands they are mentioning, visual insights are bringing in what kind of brands they're wearing or they have around themselves. So, it's very cool. And to get that data on the audience level is also amazing for let's say, brand manager.
Yeah.
So yeah. Speaking, my last question on personalization. Do you see personalization, emerging as a function in itself of marketing, or how big is this? Because somebody, let's say a brand manager listening to this, how seriously they should take it if they have not already bought it.
Oh wow, yeah. I mean, definitely. Um, I mean, like literally the examples I was sharing earlier, like, just a headline, subheadline can like almost double your conversion rate. If you talk about the full updates to the page, like it can
Yeah.
double, triple increases in conversion rates. So it literally changes the unit economics of the channel. And this whole, like the whole marketing industry, like the supply and demand of eyeballs, it's all an economics game, and it's all, auction driven, who can pay the most, and it's what sets the price for what the going rate is for a particular channel. And so if you don't kind of stay up to the curve there, you'll almost be priced out of the market. And so, I think that doesn't mean you have to like innovate and do all the deep tech stuff yourself. That's where there's the rule for the tech ecosystem that I think has been fundamentally behind in the partnership world compared to, let's say, paid ads. And, that's one of the kind of goals that we have, is to kind of make that more towards parity, because there's been a ton of personalization effort. I mean, Google and Meta have invested, I don't know the exact number, but billions into the space. And that is in turn, why, like those are the largest channels people spend on compared to partnership marketing. The majority of brands spend less than 10% of their media budgets on partnerships. And I think that's what's, the technology that, innovators like you guys, us, and others are doing in the space are really what's going to drive that. And so it's, I think, up to brands and agencies to be on the, not just do things status quo, and continue doing like a lot of manual efforts and things like that, but to use the latest tools that are finally starting to come out in our industry. Thanks a lot to the advancements in AI.
Right. And at Inflection, you optimize, partnerships with AI-driven personalization. Can you help me unpack that?
Yeah. So, what the stuff we're rolling out is basically allowing the creators to have whatever content they're putting out. We would ingest all that information, listen to their channels, like social listening with a few other proprietary things we do on top of that, and use that to understand who their audience is, what their audience is interested in, and then what the promotion is for whatever the brand that they're working with, and then use AI to be able to take that and create new custom copy that's tailored just for that partner, and be able to then rewrite the landing page on the fly in order to make that improve the conversion rates and make it easy for the brand to be able to go do that, instead of the old way where you'd clone a landing page, maybe make a small couple tweaks, because you just don't have the time and the capacity to be able to spend what would effectively be thousands of dollars of time to do it. Now it can be done with AI. So that's what we have coming out right now, and then the stuff we're going on in the future is going to be continuing that trend to, again, just our North Star metric is cut out 90% of the workload, double the conversion rates, and help drive that channel to be a much more significant part of the business.
Right. And Haafiz, at Phyllo, we are, at least for the next 2 quarters, we are focusing on influencer vetting, social media background checks. So
Right.
my question to you is, how are you doing right now at Inflection? What is the workflow in place? And what is your general view of this?
Yeah. I mean, that kind of stuff is so important. I think the one thing that I think that the people, whether it's in the brand or an agency they work with, should be still doing is building the relationships with partners. Everything else I view as either, depending how you look at it, a waste of time or a big business opportunity.
That is interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think there's so much manual work right now done in the recruitment and onboarding phase, things like the vetting and background checks and all that kind of stuff, and brand safety, and so automating of that is just one of the areas I think is heading in the right direction to be able to not just replace the work that was previously done manually, but actually do it better. I think like one of the things that you can do on that brand safety side is like, people screen and look, do it manually, but you can do a lot more deeper analysis all the way back into all of like the posts, let's say a creator had, and make sure there's nothing that's not brand safe on there that is going to come out and bite the brand later on. But then even typically right now, once that's done, you vetted the partner. Now you put a check mark next to them. They're great. But then you don't really come back and every week relook
Yeah.
at all their newest content. Nobody's doing that. I mean, I don't think most people are doing that. I'd be shocked if they were. And so with tools like what you guys are building there, like I think that's a huge opportunity to be able to constantly check so that if anything does come up, you're not caught flat-footed. You can stay ahead of the curve there. And so and I think the other real cool thing of a lot of this kind of best practice work was done previously when not at the tool level and the technology level, but at the brand level through SOPs and processes and things like that.
Yeah.
Again, either inside a brand or at an agency. And I think that was great. Like, you definitely need process and structure around that. But I think where tools like what you guys are building can, and other people coming out with stuff like that too, is it doesn't just deduplicate that workload that was being done across the board, but it actually can make it better by having access to a larger slice of data than what a brand or an agency would have access to. So I think like the example would be like, imagine email. If you were trying to build like a spam filter for email and you only looked at your inbox data to determine if it was spam or not spam, and that wouldn't work. Like, so like, what Gmail and other email providers do is they have access to everyone's inbox and they're looking at everything, and they use that data to figure out if it's spam or not. And it's much easier, better process because of that. And it's kind of like, I view that the same way in this case, where if you centralize that function, then you get not just less work, but better outcomes as well too. And I think the only risk I see with that is like, who and what is the arbiter of what's considered vetted and brand safe and all that. Like, I mean, you can go, the people that have the best data for this are going to be the platforms, TikTok, Meta, all that. They're already doing this stuff. They're just not exposing it. Then they're doing it for other reasons. And then, if they were to now make like a brand safe score and put it out there for every creator, that would be great in some way, in many ways. And I'm sure it would help a lot of things. But then the question will be like, oh, well, is this politically motivated? Why are they, there's just a whole bunch of other questions that would raise. So that would be the only thing around like the centralization of that and who's the arbiter of what's vetted and what's not vetted. And that could create issues in the future.
Yeah. I really like, Axe's approach to the community notes, because it's essentially democratization of, maybe a fact or a view, whatever. But it does sound like, a Black Mirror episode where you have a number, you have to maintain it, you have to constantly do some good stuff. So
I mean, even with and in Meta or Facebook's following the X approach too now. But even still, like, I don't think it's infallible. Like, it's always going to be a cat and mouse game for starters, but like there's been ways people have shown like how people use the community notes now and gamify that for, I don't think in our role with like the influencer stuff, but like there's definitely like I've seen examples if you want to get in the political side of things where people are manipulating community notes for better or for worse.
Right. I'll extend this question to, what Inflection is, good at. AI powered compliance tools, are on the rise. Do you think influencer marketing and affiliate marketing management is going to be, impacted by it? How do you see, basically a creator being seen as a long-term partner, or where do you see these checks taking place in a workflow for a big brand? Who I'm assuming that a brand, takes like a long form approach, like working with influencer for multiple campaigns or multiple quarters. So how do you see that?
Yeah, I mean, I think like ultimately, like that's the vetting of that and the like building that relationship. If I think the brand needs to just maintain the relationship with that partner, or their agency does, and the rest of that kind of stuff should be left to like tools and technology to help.
So you're saying like technology partners should help brands do these checks, whether it comes to affiliate risks or influencer marketing risks regularly. The onus should not be on the brands.
Well, the onus should be on the brands picking the right tools to enable workflow for them. Yeah. And I think like it's the tech ecosystem's role to be able to identify the opportunities and then build the technology in a way that brands can leverage.
Right. Speaking more of your customer base, I think it spans across different industries.
Yep.
Which sectors you're seeing, are most aggressive in automating their influencer or partnership programs?
We're predominantly right now in the e-commerce space, and we have some stuff outside that and like info and all that. But like, I think where I do see that most aggressively is still in the e-com space. I think the reason for that is because they typically play in all the channels, and I think they see CPMs rising on like the paid ad side,
Yeah.
along with the compliance and regulatory and platform bumpiness that goes along with those. And so, the relying on more and more on partners, the most successful ones I see rely more and more and more on partners.
Partners.
And so part and parcel with that, as I've kind of explained earlier, is around that personalization side of things to make sure that those partnerships perform better for the given level of input. And I think like, and I view that as continuing, like a trend that's going to continue to grow, because in my view, I think like, everyone talks about AI tools. You go on LinkedIn or Twitter or whatever, you'll see all these latest tools for making creative better and all that kind of stuff. My view, which I think is a little counterintuitive, is that those kind of tools will actually raise the cost of ads, not lower them. So it's
Okay.
the reason I believe that is because like it's a simple, again, supply and demand. If you have tools that make it more accessible to do creative well, targeting well, etc., now it's not just the most elite brands and agencies that are able to take advantage of Meta and Google's reach and their platforms and the algorithms they have. It's now more and more people can come into that mix and do that. And so that's only going to increase competition in the space for paid ads, like, because now every brand can do it well. And as a result, there's going to be more demand for the same constant supply of eyeballs on those platforms. And so what happens when demand increases, supply is the same. Simple, basic economics is the price will increase. The price of the ads will increase. And as a result, I think like it's going to be more and more and more important for partnerships to be a source for brands to scale.
Right. So, in simple words, are you saying that personalization at scale, is going to be very expensive, so expensive that it can, actually pose a chicken and egg problem of, ROI being not that effective?
Not quite that. It's more that like there's going to be even more reliance on brands to use partnerships to scale and to leverage. And that's going to not just require doing things status quo and continuing in the same way. It's going to require innovation in the industry, but also innovation with the brands to, I think, faster embrace that innovation with tools like what you guys are building, what we're building, and make sure that they're ahead of the curve for that and not behind. And so I think like from what I've seen, the personalization side for brands, it can have such a major difference, like saying it can literally change the unit economics of that channel, turning what would be an unprofitable partnership relationship into profitable, or something that was profitable into extremely profitable, and making the kind of investments in the technology and tools and training and people that use it is going to be, I think, even more important. And I'm not saying just like, using our technology only, but just like having people embrace that in general. Whether they use our technology and Inflection's technology or do the similar things we're doing, but do it manually themselves using AI, making creative copy that's personalized for each partner and not just a generic. I think that's where the real growth is going to come from. And people that embrace that are going to be really, really successful.
Right. Let's move to another trending topic: AI assistants.
Yeah.
So it's a fun question, but I think it's becoming more and more relevant now. So if you could have any AI powered assistant right now as the CEO of Inflection, what would you, want that assistant to do for you?
Just a little bit of hint from the earlier question you asked, what's coming down the pipeline. That's effectively where we are going in terms of what we're building, is that AI assistant to essentially help people that manage partnerships for brands to do it without any of the like mundane work. So I'd want literally the human, and maybe in 5 years from now, the human will even be replaced in the relationships. I hope not. Otherwise, we all have a problem. But like, we just manage relationships, where, like for example, me and you connect, and now we can build a relationship and explore things from there. But the rest of it that came before that to like set up our connection, and the rest of it that comes after that to kind of execute on that relationship, largely automated.
That's a very interesting thing, and I'm glad that it's in the pipeline at Inflection. We are also, figuring out something, similar, not very different. Let's take a basic question. Because you have mentioned this word partnership many times.
Yeah.
I've been taking notes, and I'm really liking this because the human touch remains, right? A lot of people are writing obituaries of many roles because of AI.
Yeah.
People are going to go extinct or whatever.
Yeah.
So, first of all, what is your overall view on that? Do you see AI as threat, or augmentation is the new reality, or replacement? What are your views?
I mean, honestly, like, I don't know. I don't see that the case. Like in every time in human history, it hasn't happened. And you could say, oh, this time is different. You could always say that this time is different. And humans have always adapted 100% of the time. The thing is, you can't predict what the thing that isn't there yet is going to be. You can easily see what's going to get eliminated. Even like whether you look at like horses and cars, or when farming got automated, all that kind of stuff, right? Like, I think the stat was at some point back in the day, 90% of human labor was related to agriculture, or something like that, right? And now it's, I don't know, a couple percent, whatever it is. And so I think as you go through those trends, you can see the elimination happen, but you can't see what's coming in the same degree of clarity. Because if you did, those people that do are going to be like the trillionaires, right? Like, and so I think that's kind of my view, is that we will adapt. And, I think every time you go through something like this, feels like this time is different. But
yeah,
I guess
I hope it's not. Yeah.
I hope not too. Yeah.
So Haafiz, we are in the third act of this interview. So
Cool.
You're at the epicenter of AI automation, creator-driven e-commerce. Everything is changing. Everything is, in the mix. What's one emerging trend you believe will redefine partnerships marketing, which you excel at in the next few years? How will these partnerships change?
I mean, I think I alluded to some of that in the past, where basically the content is becoming cheaper and cheaper. And I didn't even touch back on that earlier on, but when I was talking about that, but even like AI influencers and all that. So I think really it's going to come down to, that affinity that partners have with their audience. And I think the other interesting thing that's going to come with that, based on what I've seen, is it's actually, I think some of it's going to move offline. Like, it's not like that affinity building and relationship building is, it moved from offline to digital, but I think the real growth is going to come from going back to offline, because that's going to be the differentiator. The partners that put on events in person and things like that are going to be the ones that keep deepening the relationship with their audience in ways that the ones who are not doing that are going to kind of get lost in the dust there. So I think
in a way, you're saying it's like a full circle moment where offline is going to come back.
Yeah. Well, I mean, not necessarily offline is the only way, but I'm just saying it's going to come down to affinity building and relationship building, when the stuff you'll see online is going to be like AI influencers and factory content and more of that, because that's becoming easier and easier and easier and easier.
Yeah. Right. Do you like AI influencers?
I mean, I've seen some pretty cool results there, like, the speed at which they can build audiences. But I think like I haven't seen anyone doing like that kind of deep affinity work. I think it's more just
Can they build affinity? That's the question.
Yeah, and that remains the question. I don't know the answer to that. I think like I don't know. I mean, I personally, the people I follow are all humans. I don't follow any AI influencers, but maybe they'll get so good in the future that will change. I mean, I don't see with the current technology, no, but I don't see why there's a technological bound to that in the next, let's call it a couple of years. Like, what makes me follow someone online? Is it because I can go to them, I can track them down in the real world and give them a handshake? I don't think it's that alone, right? So whatever that formula is that's being done by the top humans in the world, theoretically, AI should be able to replicate that. There's no fundamental reason it can't.
Yeah, interesting times. I mean, I also have mixed feelings about AI avatars of the influencers.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's see what happens. There is a lot on the horizon. AI assistants, AI holograms. I don't know what to call it. It's a very, what's going to be the medium. I'm still thinking outside in the real world. So,
Humanoid
yeah,
robots as well too. If you want to go down that
yeah,
realm, I know we're on a influencer marketing podcast, but we don't need to get into all that kind of stuff.
yeah. I mean, it's an interesting time we're living in. Last couple of rituals we make our guests go through. Would you like to, give a book recommendation, your all-time favorite, or whatever you're reading right now?
I mean, my all-time favorites would be a couple. I mean, oh man, there's too many. I Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill, classic. For SaaS business founders, I'm loving the book Software as a Science by Dan Martell and some of the other SaaS Academy teams. What I'm reading right now is a book called Beyond Your Shadow. It's a leadership and mentorship book, and kind of opening up my world on that side of things by a person named Vinny Fisher. And then also going into a lot of the work of a person named David Bayer, Bayer. He's got a book called A Changed Mind. I've finished reading that one, but I'm going to a lot of his other work. He's got a podcast called that as well too. It's a lot on mindset, and I'm finding like that's a big focus of mine right now.
Wonderful. The second thing is, would you like to nominate anyone for our podcast?
Yeah, for sure. Have you had Aaron Paul from Paul Street on the show?
Not yet.
Yeah, I think he'd be really good. The stuff he's doing and like bringing together, affiliate, performance PR creators, and like the meld of that world. I think he'd be really interesting to have on. And I also really like the work that the team at Influence Logic is doing as well too.
Okay.
Have you had Cassandra Scarbeck on?
No.
Yeah, I think she would be interesting as well too.
Great.
Or anyone in their team there.
Yeah, I mean, you have great book recommendations and recommendations for people. So I'll certainly write to you to get more information about these.
Cool.
Haafiz, Dossa, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing all your ideas, whatever is coming for us at Inflection and in general. So I think there is a lot to take out from this conversation for our audience. So thank you so much for that.
It was my pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
And if you like the show, please let us know. You can comment below in the comment section. You can find Haafiz on LinkedIn. You can follow him there. And yeah, do give us, follow button as well on any platform you like. If you're listening on Spotify, please follow us there or subscribe on our YouTube channel. See you in the next episode. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Impulse, the influencer marketing podcast, is brought to you by Phyllo. Phyllo is the easiest way to get access to authenticated creator data from hundreds of different platforms. To know more about Phyllo, visit getphyllo.com. That's get, PHYLLO.com. Also, make sure to search for Influencer Marketing Podcast in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube Podcasts. And don't forget to click subscribe so you don't miss out on any future episodes. On behalf of the team here at Phyllo, thank you so much for listening.